Today's guest left school at just 16. She was made to stand on a desk by a male supervisor and told she would never manage multi-million pound contracts because she was just a woman. But she didn't just prove them wrong, she turned their doubts into her purpose. Diane Faben spent over 2 decades navigating the boys' clubs of government and utilities. In that time, she discovered emotional intelligence wasn't something to suppress, it was her greatest strategic advantage. While so many were teaching women to lean in and play by masculine rules, Diane was quietly building something entirely different. Mentors for Women isn't just another networking group, it is a revolution in disguise. Diane's philosophy is simple: women shouldn't have to become someone else to succeed. Empathy isn't soft, it's the ultimate leadership superpower. Today, Diane and I go deep into the moments that shaped her. This is a conversation about transformation, about turning wounds into wisdom, and about why these traits that once made you feel weak might actually become your greatest strengths. I am Virpi Tervonen, and I'm proud to be one of the mentors at Mentors for Women. Today, I have the privilege of interviewing our founder and CEO, Diane Faben, entrepreneur, mentor, and the woman who is rewriting the rules for how we support women in business. If you have ever felt the pressure to hide who you truly are to get ahead, this conversation is for you. Diane, let's start with that moment. You standing on the desk. Take me back there in that office. What was going through your mind?
To be completely honest, probably not a lot. I was 16. It was the 60s, 70s. I was wearing a very short skirt. That's what I did. I was told to get up and open the window, and I could only do that by standing on the desk. It occurred to me that there was an ulterior motive in that request. And actually, I only found out a few years ago that there was an ulterior motive when I spoke to an ex-colleague of mine from that time. And he told me that the purpose was to look at my skirt. Needless to say, now I'm horrified that was the case. I have to say that that's just the tip of the iceberg of the things that I've seen and experienced as a woman in the workplace. And things have changed quite dramatically now. People can't get away with doing the things that they used to do in those days. Thankfully, most women in the workplace won't have to experience that sort of, what can you even call it? Abuse. It's the only word I can think of.
You worked over 20 years in government and utilities, and these are spaces full of men. Tell me about a moment when your emotional intelligence gave you leverage instead of being something you had to hide.
So there are probably lots of examples, but the one that springs to mind most of all was I was working on a big account and I was in charge of the rollout and implementation of a new system across the UK. It had lots and lots of problems and everybody was very unhappy. All the users were very unhappy. Management was very unhappy, whatever. It was difficult. We decided to do a roadshow and go and talk to the managers in each area and tell them what was happening. And I opted to tell them the truth. I was very honest. We had issues with the system falling over during the day. We had issues with it with lots of bugs, and it was going to take a long time. It was going to be at least a year before we could resolve all of those problems. So I was very honest with them. I told them the truth. I spoke from my heart about my passion to fix the problems, about what the plan was, about how long it was going to take, about what we would do in the meantime to do short fixes, etc. And at the end of it, one of the managers in the group room said to me, "Thank you. You are the first person we have spoken to who's actually been honest. It's completely refreshing. And we can trust you now to do this work." And for me, that was a big turnaround. People didn't want me to tell the truth. Should we do this? Should we do that? How can we frame this? How can we frame that? But for me, the only way that you can actually build credibility is by being honest and talking from your passion. And for me, talking from my passion about what's wrong, how we fix it, where we go from here, talking to people about what we do is the most important thing. And that's what gives me credibility and has given me credibility throughout my career.
It sounds that there was a lot of fear-based thinking in the other people because they wanted to cover, and you were rooted in that honesty, like you said, connection is important. Therefore, you need to be transparent, not honest in a way that you hurt someone just being honest, but you were transparent about what was really going on. And that is emotional intelligence, so that courage comes from that.
Absolutely. And I think one of the hardest things about being emotionally intelligent in a room full of non-emotionally intelligent people, shall we say, is having the courage to speak up, having the courage to say, "No, I'm sorry." There have been other instances where I was put into an organisation to be a mentor, really, to a lot of women who were from India in the organisation. So, they were brought onshore to work. And when one of them approached me with a problem, and I went to the management team with this problem, the management team which I was part of, I was poo-pooed. And I really had to put my foot down and say, "No, this is a real problem. This girl has a problem. She's struggling with what's going on. We need to sort it out." And sometimes it's just really, really hard to make people understand that has to happen. It's too hard, you see. It's too hard to deal with it, isn't it? That's the problem.
It sounds also that it gave you the capability and capacity to not to tolerate certain things, so that it's also helped you to create boundaries within your job, your role, but probably also in your personal life. So not to tolerate things because you were clear within yourself as well.
Definitely. I think I have grown. I am the person I am today because of my experiences in life. So I have grown to become who I am, and, not tolerating. I'm much better now at saying no. I'm much better at saying, "No, that's not right," straight away, instead of just dancing around my handbag, as we say in the UK. I can say no, and I will actually pick up the phone now and say no straight away if I see something is wrong. Yeah, it's important to be able to be honest and to be true to yourself in what you're trying to achieve.
It also sounds that you being aware of what you're feeling and accepting, and also, like you said, talking from the heart, it enabled you to connect your logical, analytical brain better. So you were solving very complex, difficult, problematic situations because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the situations that you've got, when you're managing a large team across multiple sites and everything else, and you've got major issues running, you've got to be able to gird the team to focus correctly. Even if you don't have the actual technical knowledge, you have to make sure that you're moving in the right direction all the time. And you've also got to be able to pick up on issues within the team. So you've got to be aware of what's going on. Is A not speaking to B for some reason? Has somebody got emotional situation going on in their life, that you need to hold for them? You need to, make sure that they know that they've got somebody to talk to, etc. I had one year where I had 3 men working for me, and all of these 3 I have many people working for me, but these 3 men all had a breakdown in 1 year. So I had 3 men having an actual breakdown, and I'm having to manage that as well as manage everything else. But it's important to be able to do that, because if they didn't feel they could talk to me about it, then that would be even worse. Then they would just disappear, wouldn't they? And I wouldn't even know what was going on. So yeah, you've got to be able to hold the ball in many, many ways to be successful, to be a successful woman, I think. To be a
I'm just
successful.
curious, you are very capable with your emotional intelligence. You're aware of things. Do you feel that because of that, you had to manage even more of that emotional management and work? Because that's typically put on women's shoulder traditionally.
I
But do
think
you feel that became even more of your responsibility because you were capable of doing that?
I think it's something that I just naturally do. It's not necessarily that it's foisted on me. It's something I naturally do. When I think about myself as a mentor, I think I am a natural mentor. I mentor my boys. They talk to me about their careers and what they're doing, and we have discussions about what they should and couldn't, and might and not, and so on and so forth, as well as being their mother. So I think I'm naturally like that. And how or why, I don't know. Life's experience, I suppose, is just come. So naturally I pick up on issues with people, and that's nice to know. Interestingly, just as a slight aside, when I moved to this little village that I live in now, I started a knit and natter group. And so we've got about 15 or 16 women when we meet every Monday for 2 hours, and we knit and we talk. And we sew as well. We do all sorts of things. But when you're in a group of women that you don't know at all, and as you start to discover, you find some of them have had amazing careers, some of them have got amazing careers, some of them have been stay-at-home mums, a wide variety of things. But I have noticed that some of those women do what I do, and they have noticed that I haven't been right, and they have approached me to support me. And that's kind of like new for me. I mean, it's usually me, and that's been really, really nice. So yeah, some of us around who do that.
For you, you were born with the strength of natural emotional intelligence. So as a mentor as well, and you have been leading people a long time also during your career, can people learn emotional intelligence?
Well, that's a really good question. I think they can. I think there are a lot more men. I think I've taught my boys to be emotionally intelligent because we've always talked about everything. And I think that's pretty key. And I haven't been afraid to tell them about how I'm feeling about something. So if I'm really mad about something, I used to tell them I'm really mad with you because, and these are the reasons why, and this is what it's done to me, and this is how it's made me feel, and then they're able to talk about how they feel about it. So I think you can, but I think it starts at an early age. I think it's a bit difficult to take some men and teach them emotional intelligence. So I probably because more women are in the workplace and more women have emotional intelligence, use their emotional intelligence, we're growing the men of the future that are more emotionally intelligent, I would think. Yeah. But there is no reason why men who haven't had that can't learn as well, or learn from mentors and learn from, be taught to think about things differently. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, men or women who would want to increase or strengthen their emotional intelligence capabilities. What you just mentioned is about being more aware and also the awareness and also having that communication that normalizes talking about emotions.
Absolutely. And that's so important. It's absolutely essential. And it's something that I do as a matter of course. And if I find myself in a situation where I can't, I worry about how I'm going to solve that problem. Because sometimes you do find yourself in a situation where you can't have the conversation that you really need to have. So I worry about it and I try and work through how I'm going to get there eventually. And I'll find a way, but you've got to persevere with it, haven't you?
When did you notice that traditional mentoring wasn't working for women? What did you see that others didn't?
I think probably over 20 years ago, there haven't been, in the organisations that I've worked in, there haven't really been mentoring programmes. Mentoring has very much been done off the cuff. A lot of the people that work for me said that I was a great mentor, but it wasn't an official mentoring arrangement that I had with people. And it almost becomes something that's on your to-do list. And because there's no program for it or objectives or measurement of it, it can fall quite quickly off the bottom of your to-do list. It's also, I remember sitting in a staff restaurant once with a woman having a mentoring session, and she was in tears. We were in completely the wrong place to be having this discussion. There wasn't a space that we could go to. We didn't have a private space we could go to. So there she is, in floods of tears. And it's like, this is just impossible. So all of these things, there's no right way to do it. And in fact, in that organisation a few years ago, they did set up a mentoring programme. And all they did was they asked for people who wanted to volunteer, and then they asked people who wanted a mentor, and then they just matched us and said, off you go. And that was it. No training, no objectives, no mentoring needs, no timing, no nothing. I got 3 women on the other side of the world. I didn't hear anything from them. It was up to them to come and approach me to start. Nothing, not a word. 2 years later, one of them rang me up and said, she'd got a problem. Could I help her solve it? Not really. Obviously I did what I could and talked to her about what I could, but it was impossible for me to solve that problem. So there was a mentoring program that just completely failed. You've got to have thought that goes into a mentoring program. The other issue is that, where do women find mentors? And this is obviously one of the reasons why Mentors for Women has been born, because I was talking to a woman the other day who is a senior person in an organisation. And she said she mentors 6 people a year. And this year she puts the word out that she was going to mentor 6 women. 70 women applied for those 6 places. Now, are they applying because it's her? Are they applying because they really need a mentor? Is she the right mentor for them anyway? What is their mentoring need? What happens to them now? Because 64 of them haven't got a mentor. So, it just doesn't work, does it? Nothing about that works. And if you look at, you mentioned the book Lean In earlier, Sharon Sandberg, she has a whole chapter on mentoring. And one of the things she says is that people approach her all the time. And she talks to other senior executives in organizations, and complete strangers come up to them, when they're presenting at events and say, oh, will you be my mentor? That's just an impossible ask, isn't it? A, people don't have a huge amount of time. B, they're not probably the right person for you anyway. C, what can they really offer? It's all wrong. Just none of it works, really. And I've spoken to so many women who've said, I really needed a mentor at that point in my life, and I just couldn't find anybody. Where do you go? How do you do it? It just doesn't work. I think men have more natural mentoring relationships with each other. There's a lot of that happens down the pub, they'll ask people, and they'll ask other men, and there are more of them, of course, in the organisation. So they will ask other men. There will be informal mentoring. There is more available to them. Women are a bit more afraid to ask as well. I think that's the other thing. There was some study done, I can't remember the name of the organisation, but they do a study about women every year. And in one of the years, they were saying that the majority of women in middle management did not know where to go to find a mentor, did not know anybody in their organisation who was suitable to be a mentor. That's, it's very sad, isn't it? So that's why mentoring doesn't work. Sure.
What I'm hearing is that there has been a lot of gaps and still is. There's huge demand. There's also, I think, the awareness of also what is required from the mentee and also from the mentor, so that lack of systems. And like you said, mentoring is not like a tick in a box, or yeah, we have this mentoring program and we just assign people, but there's no criteria about what it is and how it should work. No systems in place, actually. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when was the moment you decided, I'm going to build something different? So take me back there. So what happened?
So it's quite a funny story, really, because it goes back much further. I discovered 2 years ago it goes back much further than I thought. So I've been involved in a piece of personal development work called the Mastery for quite a long time, 30 odd years. I think the first time I went to the Mastery, my son was about 2, and he's 34 now, so it gives you an idea. And I've been a subject on it, and I've been a support person on it. I've done a leadership course about it, which took a year. And so I'm quite well, and it's changed my life. It made a big difference to me because I was seen for who I am, not who I think I'm seen as, which is quite a different thing. I went to do a back row, which is a support role in 2015, I think. And there were mainly women on the front row. And all I was hearing all weekend was them talking about their frustrations with, how they were treated at work, how they could be seen to be who they are, so on and so forth. And then I was having lunch with one of the other back row ladies and a young engineer, female engineer. And she started to ask us how to be taken seriously. She said she really struggled with the men she was working with and people in different organizations to be taken seriously as an engineer within her role. And so we had a long conversation about that. We gave her all sorts of ideas about what she could do. Don't use email, talk on the phone, try and meet people personally, try and do this, try and do that, blah, blah, blah. And in the end, I said, what you really need is a mentor. And then I said, yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? How does a woman find a mentor? And I said, mentorsforwomen.com. So there it was. There was the idea. So I was still working at the time, so there was no way that was going to happen. But it was still there. I talked to people about it. I got challenged by a lot of men who said, what about the men? But Mentors for Women, we don't ask you what sex you are, what gender you are. So men can apply too. So we're not sexist in that way. You can be a man and be a mentor and a mentee. So that was kind of that. And eventually I started to, once I'd left work, and I traveled the world for 6 months and had a bit of me time for the first time in my life. And then came back, and then I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, and my son was saying, come on, mother, you said you want to do this, get on with it. Let's talk about it now. So, we were brainstorming things. It was great. Anyway, a couple of years ago, I moved house. And, 20 odd years in a house, an attic full of stuff, it took me a long time to sort through all that rubbish, get rid of stuff. And I found the notebook from my leadership course, which I'd done in, I think, 2001, maybe 2000, 2001. And my final objective from that course was to mentor women. That was the objective I had set myself, and I had forgotten all about it. So clearly, it's just been inherent in me for all these years. There's been a light bulb moment of mentorswomen.com, but it was something that I felt was really, really needed. And probably because I came from leaving school at 16, starting work, just not having a career. Because when I left school at 16, what happened was you go to work, you meet a man, you get married, and 2 years later you have children. Well, I did meet a man and I did get married, and I was married at 18, but we never had any children. And we parted at 20 when I was 28. We'd been together 10 or so years. But so I never thought I would have a career. But then when we parted, I realized I needed to have a career. I needed to work. I needed to be able to support myself. And so things changed for me quite drastically at that point. So I think, it's probably my history of who I am, where I've come from, that has made me realize it's so important for women to have that support through their lives.
Now you have been building Mentors for Women for years. And for those who are also thinking that they would like to do similar kind of transition and transformation in their lives, let's talk a little about how it got started, about the mistakes. So what was your biggest mistake in your first year or first years with Mentors for Women?
My biggest mistake was, I knew the day I was looking for some software because I realized I wanted a membership system and, and then build on that to provide the mentoring part. So I was looking for some software, and, I've worked in the industry all my life, so I obviously know what I'm doing. Ha ha ha.
We all have been there, haven't we? I think I know what I'm doing.
So I chose this software. The people who I work with, we all went along, we all looked at it, whatever. And we're supposed to be able to get it up and running in 3 months. Well, after a year, when we still didn't have it up and running, and we did a good job of it because we'd actually made the look and feel what we wanted, which was very non-standard. So every time I rang up about a support problem, they would say, oh, somebody's developed this for you. No, they haven't. It's just the look and feel. It's all still the same underneath the hood, Anyway, after a year, I suddenly thought, what am I doing? This is ridiculous. Why am I having all these problems? Why am I still trying to make this live? So I put my service management hat on, which I should have done, years before, a long time before. This is what I did for a living, And I just went through it all. And I discovered that I had 13 major problems that were impacting me being able to make the thing live because they weren't fixed. And I didn't have workarounds for them. And I couldn't do anything about that. And there were also other things that about it that I just couldn't, I couldn't make them work the way that I wanted to make them work. It was a configuring something, but it had been built over years and years and years. So it was quite messy under the hood. And so it's quite difficult sometimes to do things. I had to pay somebody to do one of the matching screen to put all the mentors up because I just couldn't do that. And my programming days are well and truly over. It's been a long time since I had to do any of that. But I can configure. I can do lots of stuff. Anyway, so I got legal with them. So this was at the end of year 1, and I had a 3-year contract. So, I was kind of stuck. And I'd bought all these extras, which by now we'd realized we were never going to use because it was all just too difficult. Will we use the invent stuff? No, we won't bother using that. It was just too hard. So I actually had to get legal with them, and I did get a resolution to some degree. I got a free year of support, and I got things fixed, and they focused on sorting things out so that I could get it live. But by then, the investment in it was so huge, it was difficult to walk away from it at that point. I carried on. After year 3, we got rid of all the stuff we didn't need, so our costs went down significantly. But I still just carried on because the thought of starting again was too horrendous. And then last year they changed their terms and conditions without telling me and just sent me an email saying this is no negotiation. So I just sacked them with no plan, with no, I mean, we had talked a lot about what we would do, when we eventually did it, but it was just an in the moment thing. And actually it was like the world lifted off my shoulders once they were gone. It was just, I realized I should have done it a long time before. So that was my biggest mistake. I understand the frustration of users now when they get themselves into this situation, which, I mean, I understood before, but not to the degree that I understand now. So it's taken us a year. We're getting there. We're nearly there. We've created, we know what it looks like, we know how it's going to work. We're building it with AI, which is incredibly exciting and very frightening at the same time. We kind of went down the wrong road a while ago. We had to stop and go back to the beginning again because I didn't say no loud enough in the first instance. But when I did say no loud enough, it was agreed. Yes, AI had taken us down the wrong road. But we are getting there now, and I'm pretty impressed with what it's doing and how we're working it. And hopefully we'll have something in the not too distant future as our starting point. And it gives us, it can give us everything that we wanted back then, which we just couldn't get. There were so many things that we wanted to do, which we just weren't able to do with that software. So yes, so exciting times.
So that was an expensive lesson. So we all have those expensive lessons. It's not only expensive in money, but our personal energy, the time,
frustration.
Exactly, emotional energy, mental energy. So now looking back at that biggest mistake, what is the lesson that you learned? What is the wisdom that you have distilled from it?
I should have cut my losses at a much earlier stage in some way, shape, or form. At that point, I should have really tried to break the contract rather than carry on. Sometimes it's a bit like marriage sometimes, isn't it? You carry on regardless because you don't want to make that break because it's too hard to conceive what you will do next. So yeah, I should have made that break. I should have done it in the first year. I should have paid them off in some way or something, or done something, fought harder to do that. I mean, it cost me money to get legal with them. And, it was costing me a lot of money a year for this support contract. And it cost me a lot of money to buy the software in the first place. And I had a limited budget. So that's the scary thing, isn't it? The scary thing is the money thing. So where do you go from here if you haven't got that and you've got to start again? Where do you get the money from? But we always seem to find the money somehow or other, Yeah, making the break earlier, being more positive about actually this is the wrong thing.
So it sounds that, having that intuition, seeing that it's not happening and trusting that this is not what you want, and then making decisions from that. And I think there is a word, something like the sunken investment fallacy, that because you have invested this time, because you have invested this money, you keep investing your time and money further because otherwise you'll lose your investment. Without understanding that it actually becomes more expensive than stopping there and making a new decision. So quitting sometimes is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish I'd done it then. And that's what I mean about it was like a weight off my shoulders when I did finally quit, because it was quite funny. I was away on holiday in Scotland with my friend and this happened. And I went into complete panic mode, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, and this is the end, and all the rest of it. And then after 5 minutes, I calmed down, and then I thought, actually, no, this gives me the opportunity to do what I should have done years ago. And I came home. I got COVID while I was away. I came home. I didn't know I got COVID at the time. I spent a lot of time making sure I'd got everything I needed, from it. And then maybe I shouldn't be saying that bit. And then I sacked them and walked away. And of course, they wanted money, but I just said, no, I'm not paying you any money. You've had enough money from me for something that doesn't do the job I want it to do. No. And they walked away too. So it was fine in the end. But yeah, if I'd have done that years before, I'd be probably be in a completely different place now. But having said that, AI wasn't where it is now. We wouldn't have the tools that we've got available to us now to do what we're doing. So in a way, I'm trying to sell it as a win-win.
I
We
love
wouldn't be.
your attitude and your approach is that, okay, this is like accepting this is what it is now, and then finding that, okay, what are the gifts in this situation? Situation is what it is.
Yeah,
So
it is what it is.
what
Yeah.
are the gifts now?
And I get very frustrated that it's taking us so long. It's taken us a year. We're getting there. Actually, it is frustrating. But then again, I know that what we're doing is the right thing. I know a lot of thought is going into it again. We're very thoughtful about what we do and how things should work. And I need it to be right. And I'd rather it be right and us take the time to be right than go live with something that doesn't do what I want it to do. So
Thank you
it
for
is what
sharing.
it is.
Thank you for sharing that. Building a business, it is sometimes an adventure, and every good adventure has its muddy parts in it. Otherwise, it wouldn't really be an exciting story. So, in addition to Mentors for Women, you also run events called Just for Women. And those events, they focus on sharing stories and being open. So, some people might say that or say that that's too soft for business. So, what do you say to them?
Again, it's about emotional intelligence, isn't it, really? When I moved here, the lady I bought the house from moved next door, and she was just qualifying as a financial advisor. And we got talking, and I said, I need to start to build a network here. I've moved to a completely different area. I know nobody, etc. And she said, I need to build a network. So we started going networking together. And we found a really nice networking group. But it's very much, you stand around with your cup of coffee and you try and find somebody to talk to. And I hate that. I just can't stand that. It frightens me to death. I don't like interrupting other people's conversations. I don't like to stand there like a spare part, pretending that I'm involved in something that I'm not involved in. Anyway, they asked us, would we like to start a women's networking group there? So we said, yes, of course. Not thinking it through really, but so we had a couple of months to prepare ourselves, and we started in January this year. And we kind of went in with an idea. We'd got this idea of introducing ourselves with a slide set called Just Me. And rather than focusing on what we're selling, it was focusing on who we are and how we got to where we got to. Mine has photographs. It has my career, where I come from, in bullet points. It has photographs of my family. It has photographs of my needlework, my knitting. It's photographs of the Mentors for Women homepage. It has, and I talk about who I am. I'm born in Iceland. I hate heights. I've got 3 boys, 1 of my own and 2 inherited. All that sort of stuff. I come from. And it's not a hard sell for Mentors for Women, but obviously it's about that as well. But so that has now become one of the things that happens on every Just Women Network meeting. Somebody does a Just Me. And it's fascinating because you start to see the person behind the job that they're doing. You see how they got there. You see the battles that they fought, all sorts of things. And it makes me think when they stand up there and I think, oh, well, that's really interesting. Wow. Well, that's a really good idea. I really like this person. I could work with this person. It's a whole different thing. you know, to just, oh, this is what I do and it costs £400 a day. It's about them. It's about how they got there. And so we do that, and we also have a wide range of people coming to present on all sorts of topics, and then we have a conversation. So we all sit down with our coffees, we have a couple of presentations, we have a conversation, we talk about stuff. Last month, we were supposed to finish at 11:30, and at 12:20, I was going in for lunch in the restaurant with one of the members, and they were still talking. So there's a lot of talk goes on, but it's really good. It's really different. And I think the women really appreciate a space to be able to talk about whatever comes up during that session. And it could be about difficulties at work, or it could be, we had one on style the other week. It was amazing. You know, we're all going, oh, wow, you know, well, I could do with some of that. I need to be styled. I need to be coloured, you know. And it's just really, really interesting that, you know, the engagement that we have. And we started having socials now as well. So we had yoga in the field and nearly froze to death the other day. But we had drinks afterwards, so that was okay.
So
it's just a different space.
Yes. So it sounds like the Just for Women events, they are full manifestation about being who you are and not just trying to be something or just show a little fraction of you, which is the logical business. We have this, it costs that, you get that kind of language.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really different. And the women that attend are bringing their friends and saying, you know, you must come to this because it is really different. I mean, I really struggle with normal networking events. I find myself getting quite stressed by them because what I'm trying to sell is quite different, and normal networking events really don't work for me in that way. But this event works for me. I mean, I've got quite a few new mentors coming on board through it, and a mentee was joined recently. You know, it is different in that respect, in that you've got time to talk to people, and people, it's about that thing about being trusted again, isn't it? You know, you can build trust in that room and in that space in a completely different way. So yeah, I think it's really important, and I think the women really appreciate having that space to be able to talk openly about whatever it is. We don't talk about men too often. It's okay. We talk about work, and we talk about what we're doing and why we're passionate about it, and to be able to open that door and be that open is really important.
It sounds like it's definitely a space for that connection, because it's not just the logic, it's also the connection, and it's to be connected with yourself in the first place, but then connect with others who are also feeling that they are now centered within themselves, connect as human beings first, because all business is always people business. Is like, if you're just trying to run a business on pure logic, you'll miss humongous part of what business is about.
Yeah, absolutely. We're opening our second location in November, so that's quite exciting, more work. And we want to open 2 more next year so that we've got the area really well covered. And it's exciting, and I'm really enjoying meeting the women. I've met so many more women doing this than I have in a long, long time. It's just been amazing, you know, some amazing women out there, absolutely amazing women, you know.
Wonderful. So this is your philosophy. You help women thrive without changing who you are. So this is also the whole philosophy of Mentors for Women. But when you started your career, Diane, so who did you try to be, even thought it wasn't really you?
I had a long think about that question, and it took me back to my days working for Yorkshire Water Authority when I was working. It was really the beginning of my career. My marriage wasn't quite over at that point, but I'd started working in on a 4-year program for something. So that was really different. I wasn't doing day-to-day work. I was working on a program, and the work changed throughout the year. Part of it was to do the mailing. So when all the bills, all the invoices were ready to go out once a year, I was in the mailing room making sure they were all in the envelopes in the right order to go to the post office with a whole load of temps. They named me Mrs. Nasty. I kind of find that hard to believe now. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking what I was trying to be was, I was trying to be strict and important and make sure that the job got done, and that sort of thing. And obviously I became a little bit too officious, or a little bit too, I was trying to be a strong woman, and obviously it didn't work. So yeah, I was trying to think what it was they called me, and it just occurred to me just before we started speaking today. It was Mrs. Nasty. Yeah, there I was trying to present somebody who knows what they're doing and whatever, and getting it completely wrong. And it wasn't me at all. So I think I learned from that nickname.
So what did you learn? What was the lesson in that for
I
you?
learned to be a little bit more me, rather than trying to rule the roost and tell everybody they must do this and they must do that. It wouldn't have hurt for people to be able to have a bit of a chat and have a bit of a laugh in that room, doing that very boring job. It wouldn't have hurt at all. But I was on task to make sure the job was done, and I could have been a little bit more flexible about what I was doing.
So it sounds like you were limiting yourself, trying to fit really well, and thinking that you need to limit yourself and you need to just be very focused on certain things that you are good doing, but you multiplied it too much, and it was not perceived like you thought. You assumed that you would be, perceived that you are really good at it, but you were perceived in a different way than you thought.
Yeah, very different way. So a big lesson, really. But that was I was only in my mid-20s. It was brand new to me doing this sort of thing. I hadn't managed teams. I hadn't had any teams to manage before that. So it was my first real experience of that as well. They were all temps, so it was almost like it didn't matter. Crack the whip and let's just get on with it. But it was the wrong attitude to have, definitely. And I mean, it doesn't keep me awake at night.
So talking about your career earlier that you have had, so if I met you, Diane, from those boardrooms years and years ago, the one who felt dismissed, so what would I see in your eyes that's different now?
Would you see in my eyes then? Or okay, so
What would I see in your eyes that's different now? So you have now,
so
you are now
so
a different version of you.
yeah. So
So
the version,
what will I see in your eyes if you think of that, some previous version of Diane in your early years of career?
I think fear. I think a feeling of not being good enough, imposter syndrome, most definitely. I think not realizing how good I was, because there was no feedback about what I was doing in any way, shape, or form. I worked for a personal computer, a PC company that had all the services, and I was the manager of application development and management, and I was chair of the management team for 2 years, or a year and a half or something. I was the only woman on the management team, and they were a rowdy bunch. It was a great company to work for, a lot of fun. It was one of those work hard, play hard companies. There was a lot going on. The company was very good. They sent us away on management training together as a group, which was a fantastic experience, and we went a few times. We would go off as a group for 2 or 3 days, stay in a hotel, be management trained. And during one of the sessions, one of the guys said that I was aggressive in my behaviour. And the trainer, who was a man, turned round to him and he said, Diane is not aggressive, she's assertive. And men often mistake assertiveness in a woman for aggression. You are completely wrong about her. And that really opened my eyes, as well, because I didn't, when I was accused of being aggressive, I was thinking, oh, maybe I am, whatever, but it got me, he knew, and he was absolutely right, of course. So yes, so that was something that I learned. So I was finding my way. I was definitely finding my way. I had quite a big team. It was the first time I'd had a big team. I had about 30 people working for me. I loved the organisation, I loved the job and everything else. But I was finding my way, managing a big team, managing lots of projects, managing management team. All difficult stuff, wasn't it? I think a little bit scared, a little bit, am I good enough to do this? Not the woman I am today, which is, now I know how good I am at what I do. I know I see things that other people don't see. I know I can fix problems and sort things out. And I'm confident. And I know I still have my doubts we all have our doubts, don't we, from every once in a while, but I was probably winging it quite a lot in those days.
So
Not really.
what do you think that fear that you felt at that time cost you?
I think it cost me, God, it's a really good question. I think it cost me the ability just to be able to be more than anything else and to be myself. When you're afraid of your position and you're not sure whether you're going to be able to maintain that position in that organization, as chair of the management meeting, for example, or the management team, for example, you can't act always in the best way. You might give way on things that you don't really want to give way on, or you might give up a part of yourself because it's easier to do that than it is to fight. Yeah. But it's all a learning process, isn't it, really? As a 30-something then, I was still very young and being quite successful and finding my way. And I think about my career and where it started, and my dad applied for my first ever job. I'd left school and he said, I've applied for this job for you, you've got an interview. If I go to the interview and get the job. I mean, I didn't know anything about anything, got a clue. To the woman that I am today and what I've achieved and what I've achieved in my career, I would never have dreamt that. But every stepping stone is a learning one, isn't it? So every place you go and the next step you take, you learn things about yourself and about life and about how to deal with things and so on. So
What I
yeah.
love about your your mindset is that, yeah, well, was it wrong or right? The thing is that you are now aware of it. You could look back and look at it and say that, okay, actually, that was a phase, that was a stage, and I've used that. However, I really want to go back into that the cost of it, the impact of not feeling that you can really be you, so that you're over trying to be something else. You did build a successful career. You're a very capable very capable person. You were developing your career, making really good results clearly in the companies that you worked in. But what do you feel that was the impact of that? Do you see that you could have had even more success, career success,
Oh
if you
God,
could have
absolutely.
been?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I think is if I had had a mentor at that age, somebody who could have helped me to think about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and what I could do better and how and why, then I think I could have been director level in organizations. I was very, very frustrated in my last job. I mean, I was there 17 years. I loved the company I loved the company most of the time. It got taken over and it changed quite a bit, but there were lots of aspects of that I loved too. But I was constantly frustrated at being able to get a seat at the table. And I had a lot to add and I had a lot to offer, and I just could not get there. And so for me, if I'd had a mentor in my early years, I think I would have been much better prepared when I moved into that role. And I had a great sponsor for 10 years whilst I was there. And he's now a very, very good friend of mine. He said to me after we both retired, Diane, I earned a lot more money than you did, and I've done good money. He said, but you were always worth far more than I was. So at the age of 65, to hear that, it was kind of like, okay. I mean, he is a good friend. I haven't thrown him away. It wasn't his fault. He did everything he could. You know, he sponsored me into all sorts of situations and jobs and roles and everything else. He trusted me right from the beginning, first time we met, and got me good pay rises, you know, and I was very successful to a large degree. But the other thing is that you then get to that age where you start to become disregarded. It's not just about sex, it's about age too. And I could see that happened to him in his career. I love him. I mean, he has the brain of an elephant. He's just incredibly intelligent. You know, he's a doctor and he's, you know, this, that, and the other, physics. And, you know, I just love him to pieces. And I know he did everything he could. And when I saw what was happening to him at the end of his career as well, it's just very sad because you just feel like you're being thrown on the scrap heap, quite frankly. And you still have so much to offer. I'm 72 now and I'm still going. All right, I might not be running at the speed I used to be able to run at, and I do have to rest from time to time, and you know, so on and so forth. But I still have so much to give and to do, and that's all lost to that organisation. They could have had me for a good few more years, and I could have made a difference in all sorts of ways. So yes.
Well, I feel that we are fortunate that you are now full-time at Mentors for Women. So more women get those mentors,
Yeah.
and they actually also can be more of themselves so that on top of all the success they already are building, they actually can reach those that pay, they get paid for the value, and also that they are not limiting them or restricting that success that they could reach and achieve by being more who they are instead of trying to limit or being something else.
And I think as well, you know, again, there's a lot of evidence about this, that women in sort of middle to senior management get very lost. They get very frustrated. They get very fed up with the fact that they don't see where they can go from here. And they lose focus on their career because it's just too hard to move on.
What do you think that is an impact for the company that they work?
It's a huge loss because once you've stopped firing on all cylinders, once you're no longer engaged, yeah, you still do your job and you still do the best that you can do, but you're losing their vitality, you're losing their creativity because all of that just stops. Because why bother? Nobody listens to me. Why bother? And that's very much how I felt. I mean, I remember being desperately trying to get on the table, to the top table, about a particular project, program thing, whatever. I was allowed there for 2 weeks and then they said they didn't need me anymore. And I had so much to offer that particular piece of work. And I just was devastated yet again that I was not being allowed to the table. So yeah, you just lose interest. You just lose it because it becomes just a day-to-day job, doesn't it? You just go in, you do what you have to do, and then you leave. And that's what
And in
happens.
what way a right mentor helps with that so that you stay energized, you have that hunger also to move ahead, and you also feel that you can do that?
But to ask you the questions to make you think about what you can do. You know, sometimes it's too hard to think about moving on. Sometimes it's too hard to think about what the alternatives are. There's an incredible piece of work that's been done in the UK about women in IT leaving, and they've talked to 500 women, and all of those talking about doing a sideways move in an organization just to get more money or to get a different job that's more interesting, or to, you know, because they just can't see that they can move forward. I'm struggling with all of that. So somebody to really say to you, help you to look at it in the reality, you know, it goes back again, doesn't it, to the software question. Should I have, should I have just left? But I was probably too old to find another job at that time. But I could have probably done something about it if I'd had somebody to say to me, have you thought about this? And go away and look at that. And go away and find these people, and so on and so forth, instead of just getting buried in what I do and carrying on regardless. So I think having a mentor can really, really make a difference to you in terms of your headset. We just get so entrenched, don't we, in where we are in our lives and what we're doing. And things have to change, she says. So do. Sometimes you have to try and make a change. And sometimes it's too hard to do it on your own.
And are we actually ever even meant to do these things alone? That's the
Yeah.
individualism of nowadays, isn't it? Also impacting how we make choices for ourselves and how we take action and make choices.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff happened over the last few years that has made working very different. The number of people working at home, and I think it's great that, you know, to be able to work at home and everything else, but you miss so much by working at home, by not having other people around you, by not having conversations that can open your eyes, or hearing about something that might be of interest to you that you can follow up, because you don't get any of that when you're at home working on your own. And I think it is really, really, really hard in that respect. It makes sense when you can put the washing on in between meetings, and you know, you can go for a walk when you've had enough, and you can have a cup of coffee, the coffee you really like to drink, rather than the coffee that's provided at the office, etc., etc. And I mean, I was traveling for 3 hours a day for most of those last few years. And my last year, I got a role in Edinburgh, and I had, you know, like 40-minute, a 10-minute walk, and then a 20-minute tram ride to the office. It was like, this is amazing.
So at Mentors for Women, you match mentors and mentees by background and life stage. And some critics think this creates echo chambers. What's your response?
That's just really the first step. One of the things that we ask our mentors to do is to, in their profile, is to write something that's a little bit about them. What I call it is the essence of you, so that mentees can look at, you know, they can say, okay, I want to look in this sector, or this type of work, or this area, or this country, even, whatever. But they might not find anybody, but that doesn't stop them just looking at everybody. And they can pull up mentor profiles. And the point about having an essence of you is that there'll be something that somebody will say, oh, that sounds interesting. This looks like the sort of woman I could work with. Something about you that says, I'm a bit crazy at times, but you know, for the most part, I'm quite sane. But I have my crazy moments, and in my crazy moments, I create all sorts of exciting things, you know, and or something like that. I'm terrified of heights, but I still manage to do this or whatever. Something about you that says something about you. You know, it's like I traveled the world on my own for 6 months, and at one point I went on a bicycle ride that was called. It was badged as the old railway track for this big railway that goes on in New Zealand. So I thought it was a railway track, yeah. It was the most terrifying experience of my life, I have to say. There were points when I was right on the edge of big chasms, you know, it was in the mountains, in the hills, and it was up and down like this, and my bike riding skills weren't that good, and it was exhausting. I used to have to stop. I kept having to stop and sit down for a bit, push the bike because there was no way I could ride it at that point. One woman came past me and said, you know, are you okay? Yeah, I'm just having a rest. It's okay, I'm fine. One guy went past the other way and then came back again whilst I was still going the one way. I was like, obviously I'm too old for this game, but you know, I did it. I persevered. I was terrified at points, absolutely terrified. I hate heights, and I'm there, you know, I can see right down there. I'm thinking, oh, what am I doing here? They shouldn't be calling it this because it's not what it says on the tin, you know. And then I remembered, because I had a personal trainer at that time, that he said, when you're doing things that are sapping your strengths, you need to rest for longer. So instead of getting off the bike and sitting there for a minute, I sat for 5 minutes. And then I was able to persevere and do a bit better. So that kind of kicked in for me. And then I kind of got to the end almost, and it was more or less all downhill from here and big spaces and not, it's like, and I'm thinking, I'm nearly done it, I've nearly done it. And then there was this amazing panorama, and I was thinking, I should take a photograph of that. And I'm thinking, no, I should just get on. No, Diane, stop, take a photograph. And my phone rang at the same time, and it was the guy from the bicycle shop who was worrying. And he'd spoken to this woman who'd seen me, you know, and she said, oh, she seemed to be doing too well. And he offered to come and pick me up at the end there, so I didn't have to cycle back into town. You know, what possessed me to do it? Well, I didn't know what I was letting myself in for. What possessed me to carry on? Well, I couldn't go back. I mean, there was only forwards was the only way forwards, but I did it. And that night I went out and I bought myself a great dinner and I had a few glasses of wine and I congratulated myself I was still alive. And I thought, what an achievement. So that tells people something about me, doesn't it? That tells me that I still carry on regardless. How scary it is, no matter what. I've got the grit and the determination to go, even though I'm far too old to be doing what I'm trying to do. And even I'm not fit enough, I was quite fit to, you know, to ride that bike over all these things and up and down and whatever. Terrifying, terrifying. But I'm so proud of myself that I did it. So that's really, you know, is that the essence of me? That's a story about me that I can share that gives people an idea about who I am. It tells all sorts of stories about me, doesn't it? All sorts of things about me. And so getting back to your question, so, you know, people aren't restricted to that. They can look for the right person to mentor them. And in the new system, there'll be lots more stuff that we will do. In the background, eventually, we will be helping based on experience that we've seen to match people. But that doesn't mean to say that people can't say, no, these aren't for me, I'm looking for something different, and can look themselves across the whole portfolio of women that are, or mentors that are there.
So what I'm hearing is that it's not just about the skills and the goals, it's the whole context. Going back again to that we are not just what we can do as professional, we are human beings first. And it's from that perspective, you want people to connect, and that will be the first experience with Mentors for Women.
And that's why we have the 15-minute get to know you session to see whether there is that chemistry there. We're now calling it the chemistry meeting, you know, because you've got to be able to say, yes, I can work with this person. Because if you can't, you're dead in the water, aren't you? That's just not going to work for you. It's not going to happen. So, yeah.
So in 10 years, what does success look like for the women who join Mentors for Women today?
It's a great question. I think women who are confident in themselves, who are able to speak their truth, work from their passion, and find their space in life. That's what I want for women. And for women to be able to openly support other women, because we don't do that very well at all. And that needs to change. So self-assured, achieving goals, and not frightened to say no. All of those things that we don't do. It's enabling women to be who they are and get what they want, really, I think. Yeah.
So what emerges me after listening you today is that it's also about renewing that, you know, like you clearly said that, well, that's who I was and how I was functioning and what I thought about myself, how I perceived myself and others around me. But you renewed that. So it's also about the renewal of, you know, who you are and really developing the essence of you and being aligned with that more and more so that you're not just developing your skills and, you know, being able to do something, but you're developing yourself as a human being.
Skills are just one level, aren't they? I can do IT stuff, although my son says, Mum, you're supposed to be an IT person. Don't you know how to do that? When I'm trying to tap my phone to pay. But you can do stuff. You can do stuff successfully. You can be really good at it. But if you haven't got the other things, the motivation, the care, the love of what you're doing, the passion about what you're doing, then actually doing stuff is it's just miserable, isn't it? There's nothing to it. You just do it. And then you go home and you put the dinner on the table and you watch TV all night. There has to be more to life, doesn't there?
Right. Meh, right. So it sounds like living a life. So what I'm hearing is that in 10 years, the success is not just about a business success or career success, it's about success of feeling that I have lived a life. I am living a life and I have a life that I enjoy. And I'm growing my life, I'm growing myself. And it's
we only have one, don't we? We only have one life. And, you know, if we can't make the most of it in the way that we need to and do what we need to do when we need to do it, then you kind of have to ask, what's the point? I had a very interesting conversation with a woman who's 10 years older than me a few weeks ago. And she said that she left school with no qualifications and she got married straight away and then she had children and whatever. And she didn't go back to work till she was in her 40s, to work for the first time until her 40s. Because I was saying, she was saying she had no qualifications, and I'm saying, well, that's a nonsense. I'm not qualified. But I wasn't. Most people go and do a degree and then go and do something completely different. You know, you don't qualify and then necessarily use that degree. So I was quite taken aback because I'm a 50s girl and I did start my career at a time when women didn't really have careers. But, you know, 10 years on, things had changed a bit. And so, you know, I evolved. But she comes 10 years earlier and she didn't have that opportunity. But then I met a woman in Scotland who was 10 years older than me. And she had had an amazing career. Absolutely. And we sat down and we drank wine one night and she told me about her career and I was in awe of her. And she had children and she was married and she did it all. So you just never know, do you? But anyway, so she had no regrets. This woman has regrets because she doesn't feel she's lived her life.
Yes, we do have one life, but then there is a saying, something that said that we actually, every morning that we wake up, we actually have that life, so that we have many lives. Every day is like a mini life. So it's how we choose to live, what our choices, how do we renew what was yesterday's life? How do we renew it today? And so on. We die only once, but we live
We live
It's
every
it's a life
one day at a
every day.
time. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to use that.
And I also always feel like all these life stories, you are blessed with so many stages and phases in your life. There's been a lot of renewals through these phases, and you have used that. They're all connected. So there's this connectedness with these phases, and you acknowledge that beautifully. And I really love hearing and seeing that.
Thank you.
Beautiful celebration. So, what is one message you want every woman listening to remember?
Okay. I've written this down because it's really important. So now more than ever, women need to support other women. We need to put the queen bee firmly behind us. So the queen bee is somebody who's reached the top and is not interested in other women, what they're doing, doesn't support them. The number of women leaving IT at the moment is devastating. It's down to 20% of the workforce. The number of women falling, the number of women on the C-suite now is falling. It's gone from 30% to 20%. Equal pay is falling behind. So there's a lot of stuff happening. A lot of the diversity programs have been shut down. There's a lot of stuff happening, which is causing women to lose. It's a loss for women in general, and we're going backwards is the only way I can describe it. So I think it's just really important now that we support each other, that we look out for other women and help them along the way. And Mentors Women is an opportunity to do that. You know, it's an opportunity to become part of an organisation, to help other women, to share your stories, because sharing stories is really important. Sharing the stories of the women that have gone before us means that we learn from their efforts, we learn from their experience, we learn what to do better. And will we ever be equal in the workplace? It's a big question mark, isn't it? Some women will get some equality, but you know, it is going backwards at the moment. It's really, really important that we support each other.
So, why does that matter?
Why does it matter? Well, because, you know, you might be a woman that's on her own bringing up children. You might be a woman that doesn't have anything else but their career. You might be a woman that is in desperate need of some support in some way, shape, or form. If you're a woman on your own, you know, you need to have a career. You need to be able to pay your way. You need to have a roof over your head and food on the table and all of those things. And to do that, you need a job. And to have a job, you know, you want to be fulfilled in what you're doing. You don't want to be just working in the local supermarket because that's the only thing you can think to do. There are probably lots of things that you could do if you had some support and help to do that. I'm I'm just terrified about what's going on in the world at the moment in terms of particularly what's happening to women, but what's happening all over the world. I think, you know, we're in danger of losing all that hard work that that's gone into us building careers and building our lives and becoming valued members of communities rather than just women at home who weren't entitled to vote, didn't have any money, just looked after the children, maybe got abused. Maybe not. Some of them do, some of them don't.
So,
I can't put it into words any other way, you know.
So, it's about maintaining and also strengthening and expanding the freedom to choose.
Yeah. Expanding the freedom to choose, I think. Maintaining, yes, but we've been in maintain for quite a while. We had a target in the UK of 30% of women in the C-suite. 30% of people in the C-suite were women. We reached that target. Yeah, and then what happened? Well, nothing. We reached the target, so we've reached the target, so we don't need to do any more. And then we get rid of the diversity programs, and then all of a sudden we're down to 20%. In fact, there's one organisation that's gone from 42% to 24% in the last year. You know, we need to strengthen, we need to support each other to move forward and not let this happen to us. I'm devastated about the what's happening in IT. I was at a meeting, a conference a couple of years ago, and they said that the projection was that within 5 years there would only be 15% of the IT workforce would be women. I'm going, what? Because women have so much to offer in IT, because we're multitasking, we have a brain that can do that, we're logical, we're creative, you know, all these skills you need in an IT career. We're good with people. To lose that number of people out of the workforce is just, that number of women out of the workforce is just horrendous. And now I actually see it's happening, you know, it's down to 20%. And it's costing this country £2 to £3.5 billion.
Yes. So it is not just about our quality of life and our experience of life. This is about the whole society's
Absolutely.
economies.
Yeah.
So, Diane, so is there a question I should have asked you, but I didn't?
Yes. So the question is, did I ever feel like giving up on this journey? And the answer is all the time. Not always on a daily basis. So when I'm being creative and doing creative stuff and, you know, working on things and whatever, I can be, I'm focused and it's fine. But there are times when I think, why am I doing this? You know, why am I doing this? And then what happens is that I'll meet a woman, you know, I'll have a meeting with somebody who's interested in just me or mentors for women, or she wants to become a mentor, or I just meet somebody, you know, somewhere, and we have a conversation and I tell them what I'm doing, and they just say to me, oh, we need this so much. Oh, thank you for doing this. This is just, you know, oh, I'm so glad you're doing this. It's so important. And that reinvigorates me every single time and brings me back to that space of, yeah, I have to do this.
Well, thank you, Diane, for creating that system, the context, that organization with mentors for women, where women can find way more easier the mentors, and also to connect with other women in your Just for Women events. Thank you so much.
Thank you.